In this video, I'm going to show you 3 reasons why you need to overhaul your expert personal brand right now. Whether you work for a corporate employer or whether you're a freelancer or independent consultant, it's crucial that you overhaul your personal brand for 3 reasons. Number 1 is the pace of change in technology. Number 2 is increasing competition. And number 3 is the risk of recession. In this episode, we're going to dive into the details of each of them. So luckily, so far in my career, I've never been fired or laid off from a job. But I do have friends and colleagues over the years who have. And especially 1.3 years ago in the company I was working for, one of the largest technology companies in the world, there was a round of layoffs throughout the organization that, so far as we can tell, were completely random. People woke up one day and basically they got a notice, their job was being eliminated, they were being laid off. It was basically the equivalent of being struck by lightning. No rhyme or reason that could be detected. Some obvious people that probably should have been moved out were, but some really good people that had been there for 10, 15, 20 years also got let go with little notice. Whether they landed in a new job or whether they found a good opportunity and how quickly that happened was directly proportional to how strong their personal brand and their network within the industry was. So if you've listened to any of the episodes of this show before or seen any of our videos, you know that a personal brand is a lot more than a fancy business card or a resume or, even an online social profile or something like that. When we talk about personal branding and your network and the influence that you have within your career, within your company, within your industry, it's directly proportional to how much value you provide. So personal branding is all about providing, not promoting. Okay, so we talk about that a lot. It's what type of content do you create? What type of assistance do you give other people? How well known are you for the expertise that you have and the outcomes and the value that you can deliver? Okay, there's a lot of pieces that build up into having that personal brand, being recognized as an industry leader or an industry expert. And the value of that is enormous, especially in times of challenge. Okay, so we're going to talk about the 3 things that I mentioned, and the first is the pace of change. The reason why overhauling your personal brand is important is because if you haven't taken a look at how you're presenting yourself within your company or within your industry for a while, maybe a couple years or more, it's pretty likely that how you are presenting yourself is outdated. You may have things on your resume, things that you talk about, the work that you're actually doing day to day may be in aging technologies. I mean, technology is changing so fast that, even the stuff that was the hottest thing years ago, like I used to be an industry expert on virtualization, right? I mean, it's definitely still a thing. It's still important, but it's not in the top 10 list of hot technologies anymore. It was there for 5 to 10 years and, it was good to be an expert in that. But at this point in time, things have moved to the cloud, moving towards AI and IoT and a whole bunch of different, technologies that are out there. So if you don't overhaul your personal brand and you're still presenting yourself as an expert in these aging or even now legacy technologies, you're going to miss a lot of opportunities. And this is not something that's easily changed like on a dime. So, if you got a notice that, hey, tomorrow, your job is being eliminated, or, you got to go looking for work, or you're looking for your next customer because you've been on the same one for a year or two, you can't just very quickly go change a few keywords and suddenly start looking like an expert in a new field. So that's why you really do have to look at your personal brand and the way that you present yourself and make sure that you keep that up to date from a technology perspective. Okay, so we focus a lot on technology professionals on this show, and it's important in a lot of other fields too, right? So it could be in design or marketing or pretty much any professional field these days is undergoing quite a bit of transformation due to technology, due to automation, due to AI. So again, if you're falling behind on this pace of change, that's something you really need to be taking a look at, and that's something you really need to think about in how are you presenting yourself? What are the things you're learning? What are the areas that you're creating content on? What are the things that you're talking about across the different channels that you have inside of your personal brand? Hopefully you have channels that you do maintain. That's something we talk about a lot here, is the type of content that you provide, whether it's blog posts, podcast episodes, articles, books, whatever it may be, just helping people out in groups and forums. How you present in there, the things that you talk about are what build up that idea or that brand around your expertise. So again, if you're not talking about, commenting on, and adding value in the leading edge areas of today, then your brand is going to be seen as something that's not current, that's not up to date. So that's the first one, is keeping up with the pace of technology change. The second is highly related, and that's competition. Okay, the market is expanding globally. Things that used to be, an expertise that was only available, in first world countries are being delivered in second and third world countries at much lower costs. Okay, you see this in a lot of areas like design, low level, coding and website development and things like this. Things that used to be able to charge 30, 50, 100 or $200 an hour for today are basically commodity services that could be delivered at $5 or $10 an hour in some cases. So again, you have to think about the competition in many areas is broadening out globally, and that's starting to drive down rates in a lot of different areas, or just outright elimination of the need for humans to deliver in some of these particular areas. So part of overhauling your personal brand is also looking at your actual expertise. What are the things that you're working on day to day? What are you learning day to day? I have a saying that I say a lot, which is if you're not learning, you're losing. And what that means is if you're not constantly learning new things, especially if you're in the technology field, you are absolutely falling behind. Okay. And that's something that takes a lot of time and effort to keep up with. Another thing I say a lot is that, staying at the leading edge in technology is basically like being on a treadmill at sprint speed with it set going uphill, right? You have to be sprinting just to be able to keep up. And if you want to pull ahead, you really have to kind of be maxing out there. So that's something to think about, is the competition. And again, we're all competing against the rest of humanity as well as the machines, right? I mean, automation is definitely coming for a lot of jobs that are out there, not just on the factory floor, but definitely in the white collar world, in technology, in finance, in all kinds of different fields. Okay, so one of the reasons, again, why you want to overhaul your expert personal brand is because you don't want to be pinned to a particular type of job or a particular type of technology that is at risk of being commoditized or automated away. Okay, so what's interesting there is that's a really key distinction. So an idea or as an example would be, if you are a web developer, you don't want to just be talking about, hey, this is what I can do in JavaScript, or this is what I can create in PHP or Python or any of this kind of stuff. What you really want to be presenting is the interface between the deep technology side that you're probably an expert at and the things that require human skill. So imagine requirements gathering, doing a design or a new design for a customer, right? Machines and AI and automation are not going to be doing that anytime soon. To be able to go into a room, explain some technology, explain what you can do, walk through analyzing a set of customer requirements and translating that into a design, that is a mix of a technical skill, kind of the science side of things, and art, being able to work a room of people and lead them to, a coherent and a design that's going to work for them. Okay. So just a few subtle tweaks in terms of how you present your skills and what you can do make all the difference between something that looks commodity, a basic web developer versus, an application architect or, a high-end, web designer who's actually going to deliver some outcomes. Okay, so that's just one example, but you can carry that through into almost any area, is that really focusing on where the technology and the human interaction happen, that's really going to be a key area that will likely never get automated away or commoditized in our lifetime, at least. So the third reason why you want to think about overhauling your personal brand is the risk of recession. Okay. So at the time of this recording, the economy has been great. It's been a bull market in the stock market for 10 years, since the last financial crisis. Am I any kind of prognosticator? Of course not. I have no idea whether a recession is going to start tomorrow or 2 years from now. But when you're 10 years into an expansion, that's already, I think, the record for the longest ever, it is something that you need to be thinking about. Okay. So if you have been in your career for 10 years or more, you remember what it was like in 2008 when the economy went off a cliff. If you've been in your career for 20 years or longer, like I have, then you remember 1999 and 2000 and the dot-com crash that could, obviously happen again at some point. And it doesn't take a gigantic financial, problem in order for there to be difficulties for people in the job market. Okay. Now, if you're listening to this show, you're almost certainly already an expert, kind of leading edge in your field and so forth. So the risk is going to be lower for you, but it's something that you definitely want to keep in mind. Remember the example I talked about just a few minutes ago. I have seen industry leaders leaders laid off effectively by an algorithm, right? Some combination of HR factors and time and role and all kinds of other nonsense factored into a decision to just let people go, right? So it could happen to any of us at any time. And that's where you want to have this other key asset out there, which is this expert personal brand that I talk about, this network, this value that you're providing to others, so that if and when that happens, there's no stress. You just know, yeah, I'm cool. I'm certainly going to get a job somewhere else. I've got a huge network. I've provided value to tons of people over the years, had great results at clients that I can go back to and see where they need help. Maybe even launch what I call an expert business, which is to say, all right, fine. If I get laid off, I'm done with the corporate world. I'm going to go start my own, independent consulting company or a training company or anything along those lines. The entire reason why I've built the expert business agency is to enable people to have those options. So that's one of the things that we focus on. But what you really want to think about is, imagine if that situation happened. That's really going to be the catalyst for thinking about, yeah, I really do need to overhaul my personal brand. Now, if you've heard these three reasons, the pace of change in technology, the increasing competition that's out there, the risk of recession, these are things that hopefully will compel you to at least thinking about, hey, what should I be doing in this space? And now that you're thinking about it, the next question is probably going to be, okay, well, how do I do that? So if you don't have a personal brand, then obviously there's no better time to start building one than now. If you do, that's what we're talking about here, is basically doing an overhaul of that and make sure it's tuned to your specific goals and needs. So when you ask the question of how do you do that, well, what we do inside the agency is it's usually a 3-step process with a whole bunch of bits and pieces in there. The first is start, the second is build, and then the third is expand. So what I mean by start is just start doing something. Okay, so a lot of us that work in the corporate world, we just kind of do our jobs and try and do good, and that's all we do. We go to the customer, we deliver every day, or we go to our corporate job and we do what we're supposed to do, and we hope we advance and so forth. But when you think about, okay, well, what does building a brand mean? There's a whole bunch of other things there. And like I said, it's all about providing, not promoting. So what that is that's providing value out to others by sharing your knowledge. Okay, so that's one area where it's very easy to start building that brand, and that is just to simply start providing value. If your company has email lists or distribution lists or LinkedIn groups or any kind of place where people get together and collaborate, start adding your knowledge into that. Help people, answer questions. That's the easiest way to get started. Once you've done that, there's a bunch of other things that we recommend layering into there. Building up assets that exist outside of the company you work for, your own website, your own blog, maybe even your own podcast or YouTube channels and so forth, where you can start sharing your knowledge. So a lot of things that we talk about is like your internal personal brand within your company and your external personal brand. So if you're going to do an overhaul, you want to look at each of those. And what you want to start thinking about is, okay, what are my goals now? Okay, so when maybe you first started, your goal was to, get a job or get a promotion or something like that. Okay, now your goals might be different. Now it might be like, hey, I want to rebrand and change my expertise from, let's say, virtualization to cloud computing, right? Or from on-premises type of work into containers and cloud computing, any of those types of things. Or from, old school kind of SQL database type of stuff into, data science. There's any number of progressions that you might want to go through to kind of upskill or to repackage the base of what you know how to do into something that's more relevant today. So when you start thinking about doing that, the first phase is to start delivering some value along the lines of the new direction that you want to go, and to the people that can help you in that new direction. Okay, so when you want to think about maybe a different role, moving to a different company, getting that promotion, when you think about your goals, you want to think about who can help me get to my goals, or who is a potential blocker for me achieving my goals, right? So it could be the promotion review board at your company. It could be mentors or colleagues that you need to influence, that you need to build up this brand of being an expert in this new area. So that's the first part, is basically start. The next phase is build, and that's where you want to add in as many of those different channels as I was mentioning there. So it could start with just a basic website where it just gives fresh information about what you're doing, what you're working on, the skills that you have. Could be as simple as updating your LinkedIn profile to not read like a stale resume and to actually show, hey, this is the kind of value that I can actually deliver to customers, to clients, to employers. Okay. From there, the sky is the limit. We walk people through a progression from websites to building audiences all the way up to all the social channels. And that's really what that build phase is all about, is getting all of the different channels in place. And then the final layer is what we call expand. And what that means is start feeding content and value into those channels, because that's what starts to build up your expertise. When you are seen helping others and delivering them value, that automatically elevates you to an expert status for everybody else in the audience that that might be seeing this going on. So if you're on LinkedIn and you're commenting on articles and you're helping people and you're providing expertise, you are going to be seen as the top 1% of anybody in that particular field just by showing up and providing some effort. You don't even have to be the world's leading expert in any of these areas. If you're providing value and helping others, it automatically elevates you over compared to almost anybody else that's going to be in there. So that's basically our recommendations. Is there's 3 reasons why you want to overhaul your personal brand now. And again, they are because of the pace of change of technology, the increased amount of competition, and the risk of recession or challenges in the work environment. And then the way to do it is to start, build, and expand your personal brand. So if you want to learn more about building an expert personal brand, if you want to learn about how you can share my team of technical and marketing experts to help you build a world-class personal brand that positions you as an industry leader in your field, head on over to www.expertbrandsystem.com, and I've got a free training video over there. It's about 10 minutes. It's going to show you our whole process end to end and how we can help you do everything that we've talked about in this episode without it requiring 10, 20, 30 hours of your time a week. So I hope you go over and check that out. Again, it's over at expertbrandsystem.com. Thanks, and I hope to see you in the next episode.